This is CK challenge question 4. The weightage of this question is 5%. Create a pod called Delta Pod in defense namespace belonging to the development environment. So label we have to use is evn is equal to dev and front in tier, the tier is equal to front. We have to use the image of nginx with a tag 1.17. So this question requires you to create a Kubernetes pod named Delta Pod in the defense namespace with specific labels indicating that it belongs to the development environment and front end tier. The container image used for this pod is nginx. The tag we have to use 1.17, which is a version of a popular nginx web server. This image will be used to create a container that runs the nginx process and expose the default port 80. The defense namespace is a logical boundary within a Kubernetes cluster that separates resources related to the defense project from those of other projects. By creating the Delta pod in the namespaces, you can ensure that it is isolated from other pods and resources in the cluster. Additionally, the pod is labeled with the environment and tier label to identify its purpose and characteristics. The label evn is equal to dev indicates that the pod belongs to the development environment, while the label tier is equal to front indicates that it is the part of front end tier. These labels can be used later to filter and select specific pods based on their attributes. To create the Delta pod, you will need to use Kubernetes command line interface, that is called CLI, or a configuration file that specify the pod's metadata, container specifications and labels. Once the pod is created, it will be scheduled to run on a suitable node in a Kubernetes cluster, and the nginx container will be started within it. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first. But if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solution. Best luck.
Okay, in these questions we have to create a pod, simple pod, named as Delta pod, in the defense namespace. The first thing we have to check either this namespace exists in the environment, kubectl get ns that we use for the namespace, and we didn't find any namespace, so we have to create it first. Kubectl create ns stand for namespace. What is the name of namespace? Defense. Let's verify it. kubectl get ns. Okay, so now we have a defense namespace gets created. Now use the imperative command to do all the things. So it will be in a faster way, and you have to practice of doing the imperative command for the exam perspective as well. In the real scenario, when we are working for any organizations, we never use the imperative command because all the definition file we say commit into our repository and managing the history as well for all the definitions file. In this way we can track. So whenever do any modifications in the productions environment, we will do a modification in the definitions file, we take the approval, and after that we apply the changes, and the same changes will go, the definition file will move into the repository, so that we have a complete history in the for the organization which we never used an imperative command in the organizations we use are working for. So but for the examinations perspective, we have to do all the things or manage our commands to do in an imperative way only, because they are in the exam there is a time constraint and you have to manage your time. So let's begin with doing it in an imperative way. Run. The name of the pod is Delta pod, and the image that I am going to use as per the question is Nginx. And we have also one tag, that the version tag that we have to use, and we have to do it in the defense namespace. So let's use that thing as well. And labels, this is the label thing that we have to use for environment. It should be def, comma, because we have to use two, tier is equal to front. So you can see that the pods get created. Let's monitor it. kubectl get pod. Do we find it here? No, because our pods get created in different namespace. This is the default one, so you have to use a namespace. Here you will find your pod that gets created. Let's monitor it as well for the labels. So label, and you will find it here. All the labels has been set. You created this pod in the defense, and the image that you used, let's monitor is as well. Clear the screen. kubectl, use the namespace first. Defense. This is the name of the namespace. Describe pod. What is the name of pod? Delta. Delta pod. And grep for the image. Okay, this is the image. So we managed all the things correctly. Whatever asked in the question, we verified it as well, because after doing the things whatever said in the exam, it's must to verify your changes. Either you did it in the correct cluster, the namespace, if it's mentioned, you have to do all the things for a particular namespace, whatever they mention in the question. This is very important. So good luck for your exam if you are going to appear in coming days.